The most severe impact of the war in Ukraine on the Russian army was indisputably manifested in the Russian ground troops. The Russians confidently entered Ukraine on February 24th. Now that we reach 2023, the losses of the Russian ground forces have almost exhausted the Russian army. There is currently a non-assertive and disbelieving Russian ground force on the Russian fronts in Ukraine. In addition to the Russian ground forces, the Navy also experienced its most painful experiences in the Black Sea waters throughout its history. There is no doubt that the Russian Federation is the most powerful navy in the world, next to the USA, China, and the United Kingdom. It is a well-known fact here that the US Navy is now by far the most powerful in the world. The balance of power between Russia, China, and the United Kingdom may change with the latest developments. In fact, this balance changed with the land and sea war that Russia started in Ukraine. The fact that the Russian Navy lost a total of 19 warships in the Black Sea, or some of these ships were severely damaged, is of course the main reason for this great power reduction. In this video, we will give you the most critical points of the Russian Navy losses, which have increased again in recent days, and talk about these losses. It is known that the Russian Navy lost at least 19 of the warships in the Black Sea as a result of the bold attacks of Ukraine, or were rendered dysfunctional. Russia is trying to restore its lost naval power in the Black Sea. Here, it is noteworthy that the wrecks of Raptor-class assault boats and Cerner-class landing craft sunk by Ukraine are tried to be repaired. In addition, Russia uses warships captured from the Ukrainian Navy. This situation actually reveals the helplessness of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea. These ships were not just ordinary small assault boats or small landing craft. We have been witnessing the rapid loss of power of the Russian Navy since March. In the Black Sea, Russia's flagship Moskva, the missile cruiser equipped with state-of-the-art weapons and missiles, was sunk, while the other flagship, the Makarov cruiser, had to be withdrawn, damaged. This incident was Admiral Makarov's first damage. In the attack on the Sevastopol port in the past months, one amphibious warship was destroyed, while at least one of the two large landing craft was destroyed and the other was disabled. At the same time, at least 5 of the Raptor-class high-speed patrol and attack boats, which were produced for use in special naval missions, were destroyed. Of the Raptor-class ships, the Russian Navy produced 17, and it was reported that 8 of them were in charge of the Black Sea Fleet. In other words, 65% of the Russian Raptor fleet in the Black Sea was eliminated by Ukraine. If we examine the events in detail, the beginning of everything was in March. In mid-March, in the port of Berdyansk, the Russian Navy received its first major blow. Special forces of the 503rd Marine Brigade and 501st Marine Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces sank 2 Cerner-class landing craft and 1 amphibious warship, Orks, from the Russian Black Sea Fleet in the port of Berdyansk. This attack had exceeded the endurance of the Russian army. Snake Island was captured by the Russian fleet flagship Moskva missile cruiser just after the Russian army began its ground operation. The main purpose for the capture of this island was the landing plan that Russia aimed to realize in Odessa. With this landing, they would occupy Odessa, which could not be occupied by land operations, and completely cut off Ukraine's sea connection. But with a surprise Neptune strike missile attack, Moskva moved into the deep waters of the Black Sea. This cast a shadow over the irreversible strength of the Russian fleet in the Black Sea. Look, in the coming days, we will see how the Russian Navy lost its dominance of the Black Sea with this incident. Because after Moskva was hit by Ukrainian Neptune missiles, another hard blow came to the Russian Navy, which thought it would be safe in Sevastopol, showing them that the Russian Navy was never safe on the Ukrainian shores of the Black Sea. May, June and July were a nightmare for the Russian Navy. The Special Operations Forces of the Ukrainian Navy conducted a large-scale operation to liberate Snake Island, and the Russian Navy began to suffer the heaviest losses in history. Here, together with Ukraine's Neptune and Harpoon anti-ship missiles, Bayraktar TB2 armed drones achieved great success. In the history of world naval warfare, Bayraktar TB2 managed to sink 4 of the Russian Raptor ships by itself and disabled Admiral Moskva's air defense systems. They also managed to locate Admiral Makarov. This was the first use of armed unmanned aerial vehicles in naval warfare. The Russian Navy was stunned. The Russians could no longer move freely in the Black Sea and did not dare to approach the Ukrainian shores. The Ukrainian coast was armed with Swedish RBS-17, American Harpoon, and native Neptune missiles. The Russian Navy had to be stationed in the central and eastern Black Sea. the main headquarters and air bases of the Russian Navy's Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol were attacked 3 times in August. This was the second major blow to the Russian Black Sea Fleet, and now the Russian Navy had lost its air dominance in the Black Sea. Then, the attack of the Ukrainian army on Sevastopol in October, November and December caused great disappointment to Russia. Ukrainian drone armies under the command of the Ukrainian Navy's Special Marine Forces raided the Russian Black Sea Fleet main headquarters twice. In addition, Russian Navy elements in Novorossiysk, a Russian port city, were detonated by Ukrainian underwater drones. Russia was no longer safe, not only in Sevastopol, but also within its own maritime borders. With its flawless plan, the Ukrainian army bombed the Russian Navy's port in Sevastopol, Crimea, with 7 submarine drones and 9 UAVs. The main headquarters of the Russian Black Sea Fleet was helpless in the face of the Ukrainian drone army attack. Ukraine's drones easily penetrate the Russian naval defenses. Ukrainian underwater drones were the size of a canoe, racing through the waves, gliding towards their target. It was reported that 3 warships belonging to the Russian Navy were damaged when the Ukrainian UAVs hit their targets. The most important of these was the Admiral Makarov, the flagship of the Russian Navy. Another ship and minesweeper were also hit. As a result of the attack by the Ukrainian army, the damage was less than expected, the warheads barely scratching their victims. But the effects of the attack by Ukrainian UAVs on the Russian Navy in Sevastopol went far beyond the explosions. They put the Russian Navy into protection mode and essentially locked them in the port. The Ukrainian army's attack on Sevastopol had a dramatic effect on the morale and sense of security of the Russian Navy, which Putin trusted so much. It was normal for them to be attacked in and around Snake Island, because the fact that they were so close to the shores of Ukraine created the necessary conditions for them to receive such a heavy blow. Even if it was an unexpected attack, they knew it would come one day. Likewise, Ukraine strengthened the Ukrainian coast with Harpoon anti-ship missiles right after the Neptune missile struck Moscow. But the Russian Navy, which was attacked in the port of Sevastopol, was aware that it was no longer safe in the port it sees as its own home. In fact, Russia had to tow some warships to the port of Novorossiysk. While making these analyses, I would like to draw your attention to another point. In the Dnieper River, many naval warships belonging to the Russian army were destroyed by Ukraine. We have repeatedly witnessed the destruction of shipping boats and some Raptor-class ships used for emergencies in the region. Each loss of the Russian Navy indirectly affected its activities in different regions. When the Russian Navy withdrew from Snake Island, the way for the Kherson counteroffensive of the Ukrainian armed forces was opened. When the west bank of Kherson fell into the hands of the Ukrainian armed forces, the Gulf of Dniprovska was now completely in the red zone for Russian warships. The passage of the Russian Navy to this region now seems impossible. There is currently no complete data on how the Russian Navy generals will evaluate the situation. However, we know that NATO warplanes are closely watching Russian warships in the Black Sea. Putin's steps are being closely followed, and now the probability of a move seems very low. NATO shares its intelligence with the Kiev government, and Ukrainian commanders are always prepared for a surprise attack. The war is about to come to a breaking point, and there will be a break in next February. When this break occurs, the Russian army will need navy support from the sea. However, given the situation in the Black Sea, it is unclear whether this support will come. The Russian Navy's suspense causes crisis. Russian President Vladimir Putin will seek remedies to save his navy from this crisis, but there doesn't seem to be anything he can do for now. In fact, if Putin loses when he plays his last card, he will lose everything with this game. Thanks for watching.